If you own or run a med spa in Texas, this new law might be the difference between scaling your business and shutting your doors. The problem is, there is a lot of misinformation and confusion. So, I'm going to tell you in plain language what this bill is all about. In a few short minutes, I will address what HB 3749 actually says, what the implications actually are, what changed since the original draft, the three biggest risks for med spas right now, and how to stay compliant without slowing down your business. We work directly with the authors of this bill, so you are getting insights straight from the source. Now, let me give you some quick context. This bill was introduced after a tragic death of a patient at a med spa in Texas who received an elective IV infusion from an unlicensed person who had no oversight by a physician or a mid-level provider. Now, there's a lot of misinformation on Facebook groups, forums, Instagram posts, and I know that this can be scary, frustrating, and just plain confusing. But not all of that fear is based in facts. So let's break it down. First, let's break down HB 3749. Who does this actually apply to? HB 3749 only applies if you are doing elective IV therapy at your practice or in a mobile setting in the state of Texas. Now, what does this bill mean? What is it requiring for people who do perform elective IV therapy? Well, there's two things that are of note here. Number one, a good faith exam is required before any patient can receive an elective IV treatment. And that good faith exam must be done by someone who has prescriptive authority. So that can be a nurse practitioner, a physician assistant, or a physician. Secondly, HB 3749 actually outlines who can administer an elective IV therapy treatment. It states that the only people who can administer elective IV therapy are an RN, an NP, a PA, or a physician. So, what's changed since the original draft? As many of you know, there was an early draft of HB 3749 and the final draft that was signed by Governor Abbott in June of 2025. Now, the original draft had a lot of additional language that actually never made it into the final bill, and I'll address some of those myths towards the end of this video. Mainly, what we want to get across is that everything in the bill that was related to cosmetic procedures, elective cosmetic procedures, is no longer part of this bill. This bill is very specific and explicit to elective IV therapy. What's often misunderstood about HB 3749? Let me address the most common questions I get asked. This does not mean that NPs cannot do good faith exams. That was language that was in the original bill that is no longer included in the final draft. So yes, nurse practitioners and PAs can perform good faith exams for patients who are doing elective IV therapy. Also, this does not mean that the physician has to be on site at all times during your med spa hours of operation. However, there may be explicit rules that relate to delegation and supervision that are outside of elective IV therapy that you do need to be aware of. But today, I'm just talking about elective IV therapy and HB 3749. So, what do med spa owners need to know? What action do you need to take today to make sure that you are in compliance? Number one, this bill goes into effect September 1st, 2025. So there are three things you should be aware of. Review your IV therapy protocols and delegation. If you're doing IV therapy at your practice, make sure you have an SOP and a clear delegation agreement to whomever is performing those IV treatments at your practice. It should explicitly state who is doing the good faith exam, who can administer an IV, and what to do if something goes wrong. Number two, you want to audit your staff's credentials. Make sure, again, that you have an RN on site who is able to administer at a minimum those elective IV therapy procedures. If you have someone who was doing them before but is not an RN, unfortunately, that will not be allowed by law after September 1st. So make sure you're auditing all of your staff's credentials. And number three, check your emergency preparedness. You must have someone on site who is basic life support certified. That's already current Texas law. That does not have anything to do with HB 3749. It's just good practice. However, If you are doing IVs, you want to make sure that you have all the emergency response items that you would need if somebody were to go into anaphylaxis or need any emergency assistance. So have those SOPs, those protocols documented, and make sure everybody on site knows what to do in the event of an emergency. And most importantly, don't panic. Make sure you have a trusted resource that you can count on to give you up to date, accurate information about what these regulations actually mean. Spakinect can help you with good faith exams if you are doing elective IV therapy at your practice. We can also combine that with other treatments if your patients are coming in for injectables, neuromodulators, body contouring. We can do a general assessment for all of your patients who are coming in and include elective IV therapy so that you are covered under HB 3749's new regulations. We have helped over 4,000 med spas stay compliant, and we can help you too. Book a free call with one of our compliance experts today.